guys, we are welcoming Tim Robards to the show. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the time today. And now, look, I know you very well because I was one of those fangirls back in the day. I was telling Dane before you came on that watched you on The Bachelor, shamelessly. So, look, to the viewers who aren't familiar with you, can you kind of tell us a bit about yourself? When did you start in the industry? What's your background? And a couple of things like that.
Okay, I got to summarize this up so I don't waffle on. So I was a personal trainer when I was finishing high school. While I was going through uni, I was studying like a physics degree. And so I was personal training when I was 18 or maybe 17, I think. Used to earn like $9.90 an hour. I was
Where was that at?
Yeah, mate, that was up in Newcastle. And I think I was paid like gym floor rates, but I was actually training people. So I don't know why I did it for such little money, but literally like $9.90. Then it went up to like $11.60, and then it went up to maybe $13 at my peak or something, you know. So I do this whole hour training session. I think they were paying $60 and I was getting like 13 of it. So I was getting a little bit exploited, but I learned a lot. So, you know, my old boss, if he's listening to this, thanks for the lessons in many ways. But
on what not to do.
Yeah, exactly. So that was how I started there. And then I wanted to take that further into, I wanted to work with big sporting teams, things like that. So I thought, I looked at degrees. There was an exercise science and rehab degree. And I was currently doing a physics degree, but I was like, you know what, I'm sick of wearing a white lab coat and studying light physics. It was kind of getting a bit boring after a while. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to change. It's a big change, but I moved from Newcastle to Wollongong and studied exercise science and rehab. I finished the exercise science parts, the ex-phys part, and I got into the rehab year. And that was all pointed towards like workers' compensation stuff. And that was boring as batshit.
It is. Exercise phys, I still think, is like that today. Like it's very kind of regimented and it's different strokes for different folks, right?
Yeah, just for me. And then I know the time was when they introduced the EPC, which is where, Medicare will pay for a session, but it was paying like $50. And I'm like, so I'm going to spend an hour with someone. I've got to provide all the equipment, all of that. And I'm meant to get excited about $50. And out of that, I've got to pay my rent, my this, that, and somehow make a profit from that. I was just wasn't it. So then that whole time I had some good experiences with chiropractors, and I wanted to do something, either chiro, physio, osteo. I wanted to do something with my hands. I grew up with my grandma who did Chinese massage all her life. And so from when I was 5 years old, she used to work on me. And so I had that my whole life. And I really appreciated having a skill, but I was like, can I take what I've learned through training, through my ex-phys, and get a skill with my hands? And so be a chiropractor that also does basically ex-phys as well. And so again, it was another like 3 years. So by the end of that, made the leap. I had a family friend who was a chiropractor and some other people, and they just loved what they did. And it just really, every time I talked to them, I got really excited about it. So I'd already done 6 years at uni, but I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go back again, finish off. So I did 9 years full-time, became a chiropractor, and then worked in that industry for 10 years and or 11 years so far now. But, I owned a couple of practices and was sort of trying to run them and delving into running the business. So all of that. And then that's the exercise and the science and all that side of my career. And then it kind of took a bit of a turn when I got asked to do The Bachelor. And I'd been the whole time I'd been doing a bit of modeling-y stuff and commercials, and had a bit of a taste of what it's like behind the camera. And I was Keanu Reeves' stand-in and body double for The Matrix when they filmed that back in 2001 or whatever it was. That all planted this seed of excitement of like, oh, you know what, I've always wanted to try some acting, but I was always quite a shy kid. I was always the quiet, conscientious one, and the thought of, like, after already doing 9 years to become a chiropractor, I had in my head, I wear one hat. I'm now a chiropractor. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Stay in that lane.
Yeah, don't go and be an actor. And the thing with acting, some people are just blessed and they can, do it from day dot. I had to do a lot of work, but I got to this point and I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm now at a point. I've been doing chiropractic for 10, 11 years, but I really want to give this a go. So I'll commit to it. So I started doing lessons on the side, daily things, weekly things, classes, this, that, and finally got my, so I was finally following this. I was excited. It was the one thing that at the time when I started was probably the 10th thing on my priority list. but it was the burning thing inside me that every part of me was going, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And my brain kept going, no, don't do it. It's just, you know, you're so far behind everyone else. You're now 35, you're behind the 8 ball.
Well, I think there's that concept between, you know, following your passion, but then also, you know, being logical. You know, I think inevitably, if you apply too much logic to your life, you'll lose passion long term.
Yeah. So for me, it was just finally starting to believe in myself. That's probably been the biggest journey over the whole time, and that really took, I guess, an acceleration through when I did the bachelor stuff, because you are constantly every single day putting yourself out of your comfort zone, absolutely shitting yourself, nervous. You know, whether it's the stuff you're filming, whether it's going on doing an interview on the project, or, you know, on Kyle and Jackie O, or whatever, you're putting yourself out there to be criticized, to be for people to
judged.
dislike you. I always, you know, judged all the time. I always just I like people to like me. I want people to like, you know, and you have to get to a point where you're like, you know what, not everyone's going to like me, but I've got to first like me. So am I living my life to my values? Am I being a good person from what I consider a good person, all that? And it really makes you be the best version of yourself, because you know, that's one of the things that it really has done. And also then when you constantly put yourself out of your comfort zone and you survive it, you then that
build
reinforcement, you build resilience, you build belief in yourself. And so with all of that, it's taken many years, but it's finally enough belief to go, you know what, I'm going to do this. I can do this. And then funnily enough, started learning acting, and now I'm an actor, and I you know, landed a role and got a full-time job, and now loving it and doing what I love. And yeah, just took that bit of belief to kind of start off, and the work. But, you know, the first thing is belief.
Well, I think, I mean, probably lead us into the next question. Like, obviously, it sounds like, you know, you're kind of in many respects a second career, or kind of in that transitionary phase. Like, what is a week like in the life of Tim these days? Like, are you still juggling both hats? So you still got the Robards Method on one side, and then you've got your acting career on the other. Like, what does life look like for you these days?
Mate, it's all over the place, and sometimes that can be a good thing, sometimes it can be a bad thing, because you know, the old saying, master of nothing, and what's that?
Yeah,
we know the one.
So you're I definitely don't wear one hat. I think I wear about 8 different hats. So yeah, I've got the Robards Method, which is the physical stuff, the nutrition stuff. I've you know, wrote a cookbook. I do a lot of stuff through social media. I've got some ambassadorships, so I'm constantly creating content. I really love coming up with ideas for content directing. Some of it's shot on your iPhone. Some of it we go out and we shoot, proper cameras, editing, music. I love that creativity process. I'm acting. I've just finished 2 years on Neighbours. I'm now a father.
Congrats.
And then thanks. And I'm constantly also still acting training. There's that on the side. And then I'm still a chiropractor, and I still work at the moment. I'm working once a fortnight as a chiropractor. So many different little things that are a mixture of creativity, a mixture of responsibility, a mixture of everything that I enjoy doing. So I feel like I'm doing everything that I enjoy doing, and maybe, you know, I could focus on one or two and maybe say make more money. But if I look at my life, I go, I'm actually really happy where I'm at, because it's not all about that. You want to provide for your family, but also really enjoy having a balance.
I think you got to wake up, and there's no point, you know, the richest person is generally not the happiest one. You know, if you might wake up with more, you know, cash in the bank, but if you're not able to actually sit there and be present with your child and your wife and just life in general, you know, what's it all for?
I like a win. Like, it's good to have goals, and it's good to have, you know, because success is different to different people. And for me, it is a bit like I want to have, you know, I'd love to have my program be successful, and success can be based on how many members we have, and how many but you could be how many members we have, but you don't give a shit about, you know, whether they actually achieve results. Or you could have, it's all about results. You could have 10 members that achieve great results, while the guy down the road's got 1,000 members, but none of them get results, whatever, you know. So I guess for everyone, you got to look at your life and go, what's success to you? And for me, it's kind of pretty simple. It's like, you know, how many hours of the day have I got a smile on my face? And as long as it's, most of those hours on the day, you know, in the day that I'm smiling, that's the biggest form of success. And then as long as I keep inspired, and that all comes down to keeping a smile on your face. If you're inspired and you're constantly moving forward, but at the same time taking the time to look at where I am right now. That's one thing I've fallen into, the trap. Sometimes you're constantly trying to get somewhere, and that's who I want to be, You've got to take the time to look at yourself now and go, I'm actually really happy with where I am. Because if you are constantly trying to get somewhere else and be someone better and be better than you were today, that can subconsciously say to yourself, I'm not good enough as I am right now.
It's a form of subconscious judgment. You know,
it's catch-22.
Yeah, definitely agree.
So you got to find that balance between take the time to go, oh, I'm really where I am right now is great, but I also want to continue the journey.
I'm actually really surprised to see that you're still practicing as a chiropractor. I feel like your book would be full, given your success.
It is because just because I'm really there one day a fortnight at the moment, but it's I do it now because a couple of reasons. Like it's grounding. I enjoy it. I like being there to help people. I do miss having new patients. I don't take a lot on because it's a bit irresponsible for me if I need to see someone a little more than once a fortnight. I kind of have to say sorry. You know, I'll be back in a couple of weeks. See you then. So it's not the best, but I do miss seeing new challenges and that. But I also want to look after my old clients and old patients who don't need as much care. But you know, it kind of, I don't do it for the money, because essentially I was just looking at it the other day. It cost me about $4 or $5 grand just for my insurance, my upkeep of what it takes to be a chiropractor. And when I'm only working one day a fortnight or one day a month, it's all I'm really pulling in a year anyway. So it's kind of like equals itself out. But I do it because I mean, it leaves me I can keep up my certificate. But it's not kind of as a plan B. It's just because I still feel it's who I am. I'll always be a chiropractor. I don't want to lose that. And if I don't practice for a certain amount of time, they will take that away from me. So even though I don't do it for money, I don't probably expect to in the future, I still feel I'm a chiropractor. And you work so hard at it for so long, just because you don't practice for a couple of months, all of a sudden it's like they can take that away from you.
That's right.
I don't know. I get it. But at the same time, I think there maybe should be something on, if you've been in practice for so much time, you can afford to have so much time off. It's not like you forget it, you know?
That's right.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a nice place to be in, where it's just because I enjoy it and I don't have to do it for the money now.
Yeah, that's right. Even what you said before in terms of, you know, why you do things, you know, it's not for the money, it's because you want to help people. Similar to why you still do your chiropractic practice. It's because you enjoy it. There's a passion for it. There's a passion for helping people. Why did you start the Robards Method to begin with? And what made you, I guess, decide to start the business, and how did you get off the ground?
Yeah, so I guess, you know, what I was finding was, as a practitioner, I think not enough practitioners, whether you're a general practitioner, whether you're a physio, chiro, whatever, not enough people are asking what is the cause of your issue. They're so quick to look at how do we cover up the symptoms. So, you know, generally what I was finding is the cause of people's back pain or neck pain or the headaches and all that. The cause wasn't their lack of adjustment, or the cause isn't your lack of, you know, anti-inflammatories. The cause is the way you're moving, the way you're sitting, the faulty movement, the lack of quality movement, the crappy diet, the inflammation that's in your system because of what you're eating. That's the cause. So, you know, in some ways, like an adjustment and stuff can help facilitate some of the healing and the movement, but it's not really fixing the cause. So the cause really came back to giving people, inspiring them to put some healthy movement into their life and take out some of the bad movement, the bad postures. And I just found that the best kind of movement in all the training I'd done, the simplest way was using rings and bars, outdoor stuff, where you're you know, the rings are great because you're working through a full range of motion. It's only your body weight. They're unstable, so you're having to recruit all the joint stabilizers, the shoulder stabilizers, the hip stabilizers, all these things, and you can work through a full range of motion. So most things get fixed when you start building strength at end range and you work through a full range of motion, and you throw in some instability. That's some of the, and you know, and you don't need a gym, you don't need a gym membership, you don't need all this stuff that are some of the roadblocks to people issues, what they, their excuses. So that developed me to build this program. And I built this program for everyone. Like, it's not just kind of girls 18 to 25 who want a bikini body. It's for everyone. There's a level for everyone. But in saying that, some of that can be the issues from a marketing point of view. So as a chiropractor, I don't say, oh, I only see young women or old men or whatever. I see everyone. But from a marketing point of view of a program like that, in some ways that can be your demise in a way, because it's good to have a clear marketing segment. Someone ideally someone that maybe relates to you, or are there 18-year-old girls that look up to me as a trainer, or would they rather follow Kayla, who they look at someone like that and go, I want to look like her, so I'll do her program. There's not many girls looking at me going, I want to look like him, so I'll do his program. So it's they may go, I want a trainer, so I'll do, and I trust what he's about, blah blah blah, but there's all those little things. So I've learned so much from that business in marketing in my journey, which is marketing. And it's one thing to make a program that people can use, but you've also got to find the balance of what they want.
For sure.
Well, you mentioned something there before, like obviously, and I think it's a very good point, because a lot of, especially in Australia, in North America, I've found historically, like, chiropractic is a bit more advanced in terms of they're looking at things more globally. They're looking at the nutrition, they're looking at the lifestyle, they're looking at the posture, all of these things that you were mentioning. Talk to us about kind of like, for example, some of the stuff that you were recommending with food and things of that nature, like what does that part of the Robards method entail?
Yeah, I guess it's going in like, as a chiropractor, you can give general, you're a primary healthcare practitioner, so you can give general food information, but you can't go too specific on stuff. So essentially you're just kind of teaching people, like, everyone knows it, but it's, eat fruit and veggies, and decrease the crap foods and the fast foods and all that. So that's as a chiropractor. So I was kind of looking at my life and going, you don't want to come in too strong with things, but what do I do? I just find I don't do anything. One thing I guess I've always been really good at is balance. And if you look at my photos physically from when I was 18 to now, I do not fluctuate much. I don't go bigger, get ripped, get lean, get fat, get big, skinny, this, that. I never touch steroids. I don't do any of that, but I've been able to maintain pretty much any time. Over the years, I think I've done 30 covers of Men's Health around the world. And at any time I was kind of ready to go, but that's at the same time, not because I'm constantly on this like restrictive diet. But a good balance of my nutrition. And I looked at what was I doing, and it really came down to this like 7-2-1 formula when I broke it down. So 7-2-1, basically you break your food up during the week as 70%, 20%, 10%. So when you look at 70% of the food that goes on your plate, ideally it should be from whole food sources. So when it gets to your kitchen, it's in its whole food form, like you would find it when you pull it off the tree or out of the ground. Or if you're a meat eater, eating animals that are eating the foods that they should normally eat. If you're a plant eater, making sure you can get your sources from your plant-based sources of protein and stuff, but with minimal processing. So that's your 70%. So 70% of the food on your plate during the week should be 70%. That should be the super clean, we call it. Then you got the 20% sensible. So that's like 20% of the food you eat during the week. Say you feel like spaghetti bolognese. So let's make that a little more, that's where it's comfort foods. You're a little more sensible about them. So, that example, you might go, right, I'm not going to go all the way to zucchini noodles and whatever. I'll go half pasta, half zucchini noodles. Why not have some steamed veggies on the side? So you can still enjoy your spaghetti bolognese, but you're just balancing it up a bit. Or when you make a pizza, why not use a wholemeal base, use more real food on top instead of sugary barbecue sauces, swap it for some other things, more herbs and things, keep it simple. So that's your 20% sensible. So you can still have some of those comfort foods, but you're just being smarter about it. And then 10% is relaxed. So whatever that means to you, if that means a Domino's pizza for you, if that means birthday cake, that's there, but you keep
for pizza and magnums. That's my 10% right there. Pizza and
Your
McDonald's.
10.
Yeah.
What's your
So
10?
you're still, it's not a cheap meal. It's not
Yeah.
cheating. You're not doing it. It's there. It's celebrate it, but you're just keeping it at, you're respecting it and keeping it at 10% of your diet or less. And what the best thing about it was when people start looking at their food and going, oh, is this plate 70% a 20 or a 10? So you look at your plate of food, and if there's stuff in there that you can't quite identify, it's whole food source. Like if there's a big thing of barbecue sauce in the middle of it, you can't tell what's in there. So that would mean, okay, that's not a 70, that's a 20 or a 10. So, you know, it really gets people to start identifying whole food, real foods.
I think it's a pretty, like, it's a logical approach, I think, especially when you're dealing with the general public and mainstream.
Yep.
Like, as you said, coming in too aggressively and saying, you know, I want you to have X amount of calories a day with this type of macro split. It's unrealistic. You know, they're corporate executives, they're stressed, they're sitting at their desk all day, they're lucky to get 1,000 steps out, etc. Like they're already kind of, just through their lifestyle, they're wired to eat emotionally.
Yeah.
They're wired to want to eat in that 20 and 10%. So I think, you know, having an amazing specific plan is great, but, you know, I think the big thing that I'm taking away from that is you can't coach that.
Yeah.
You know, and compliance is key. So, you know, if they're following the basics and following something that's quite micronutrient dense, you know, especially when you're kind of focusing in that 70% range, it's going to decrease inflammation. It's going to increase energy. It's going to decrease, you know, body fat loss, etc. And it's going to do it in a safe and effective way.
Yeah, it's something you can maintain. It's not a diet. You can do that for the rest of your life and be happy. You know, it's just keeping balance. So many people have lost balance. So it's, you know, they're so out of whack. They're more like 60-40 or 50-50 or, you know, so it's just helping them find a bit of balance and identify real food. And, you know, for people who like really structured, you can go, well, actually it means 15 meals a week are you're super clean, 4 meals a week you're sensible, and 2 meals a week are you're relaxed. You know, you can break it down like that. But for generally, I respond better, not like being so specific.
Regimented,
I think initially as you're getting it, you can start to be a little bit more specific. Then you can relax a bit with it. So you're not stressing over and counting every meal and all this. But the worst thing, I freaking hate counting calories. Like, I don't know, works for some, but for me, it doesn't. And it's just, it takes the joy out of food.
I think that's, you know, and I've heard you say that a few times, joy and enjoying it, you know, being grateful for what you got on your plate. I think, you know, that a lot of the time people are eating whilst they're talking, whilst they're working. They're not even actually sitting down and tasting the food.
Yeah.
You know, they're not actually being present with their food and enjoying what they're doing. And I think that's that's something that is, you know, mentally quite powerful for people as well.
Yeah. When I went on, you know, that I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here in the jungle, and you eat beans and rice with no salt, no nothing, no flavor for days and days, weeks on end. And it was the most blandest food. And when I came out of that, the thought of having
that would have made you grateful for anything you put in your mouth.
The thought of having a cherry tomato burst in my mouth and the flavor that would come out of that. I remember the first meal I had when I got out, I was just, every little spoonful, I was just so, just taking every little bit of it in. And I really remember thinking, this is how I want to eat from now on. And look, life does get in the way. And sometimes you just, you know.
What did you eat when you came out?
What's that? What did I eat?
What did you have?
I'm trying to remember. I think I definitely had, there was some cherry tomatoes in there. There was a nice little salad. I think there may have even been a little bit of a steak or something, you know, like
that would have been nice.
Something like that, and a glass of red wine, and I was, and then coffee.
Well, I think you know, in today's terms, they call it mindful eating, right?
Right.
You know, if you want to use that kind of concept, and I think it's super important. I mean, you know, we'll try and as a family. I mean, you mentioned you've got a kid. I've got 6. So, you know, So we'll obviously try and, you know, every day sit down, no TV, and at least have kind of an hour to ourselves where we're just enjoying being there. My philosophy with food has been pretty similar to yours. Mine's been 80-20. 80% good, 20% whatever. You know, same kind of concept, just slightly, you know, different percentages. And that was done more from the concept of, you know, like when I was younger and in my 20s and didn't have children, like, sure, if you're getting ready for a photo shoot or something like that, like, you want to maintain your physique, especially in this industry. But now at this stage in my life, and I think a lot of the people that, fitness professionals and health professionals are working with, like, I just want to enjoy myself. So whatever kind of sustainable non-diet diet can do that, I think is, greater for the community as a whole.
Yep. And not everyone needs to have 10% body fat, but we just want to be generally feeling good and getting enough fiber and avoiding, lifestyle diseases and all those things that we can. You can do that when you're eating majority. If you eat 70% real food, really, it's like the rest of the 20, the 30, whatever. It doesn't even matter what else you eat.
It doesn't.
But it's but not many people are filling their bodies with 70% actual real good food. So
Out of interest, actually, you mentioned that that experience that you had when you were kind of on an island for a few weeks and you were just having like legumes and grains. What type of effect did that have on your body?
I lost 5 kilos in a week, in 7 days. One of those days they had a sponsored little gig by KFC and they let us eat. We had these buckets of chicken, and when you are so hungry, normally I don't eat sort of much of that crap,
you would have hacked
when
into
you are
that.
so hungry,
That was your 10%.
we had KFC and beer, and we just went to town and ate so much KFC and beer. So that probably, if I didn't have that, I reckon I would have lost even more weight. But I lost 5 kilos in 6 days or something. It was almost a kilo a day. You could feel it burning off your body. Like it was you'd stand up and see black. It was horrible. Horrible, but just it just was not much fun. I don't think apart from losing some weight, I didn't really gain any other benefits.
I think it would have been something like that. I think sometimes in life, in any area, when you get hit with an extreme circumstance like that, it makes you appreciate when you're just sitting here talking shop. And able to kind of pick up your coffee or have your whatever. I think it's a good thing.
It makes you really appreciate the simple stuff sometimes.
So talking about, obviously, and we'll stay on the Robards method until we get next question, kind of get into what you're doing a lot of your time spent with now. But with that, like, obviously, there's an online component to it. Like, how does that kind of work from a business standpoint? So for maybe like for PTs or health professionals and that are listening right now, talk to us a little bit about the business element of that. We've gone through the philosophies, but a bit of the business.
So I guess, like, I've always, and this is one thing my kind of one of my mentors, my old boss from my chiropractic side of things, he was always driven to, you want to be able to provide for your family and make an income, but at the same time be driven by your successes of what happens with your patients. So it's about getting people through the door and having a full book as a chiropractor. But at the same time, you also want to be having success stories with those people. So really gauge your success on how much you're helping people. And so I still play around with it now, like there's, from a business point of view, I guess I can sleep at night because I have great success stories and I help people, and I've not been about getting the biggest bang for my buck in a way, like getting as much money out of them as I can. I probably could have run a much more successful business, but been unhappy if I'd have, made.
That comes back to that values alignment that you mentioned at the beginning.
So, and there's so many different ways now that I would do things differently with my brand. I've really focused. I've kind of pulled away from the Robards method a bit, and not as putting as much of my energy into it. And I've really focused on the acting stuff now. But there's lots of things that I've learned that if I was to go back in and fully commit, I'll do a lot of things very differently. But the main thing is that like I've definitely helped a lot of people. So that's my shortcoming in a way. But I think it's kind of finding that we were on a subscription model, and you've got to continually give value. You've got to create communities, and there's, in some ways initially I probably thought, you can set up this subscription model there is so much in our program that we did up front where you jump in and you've got 25 months worth of programming. So every month there's
Wow.
at the end of that month, there's an exam, a physical exam. If you pass that physical exam, you move to the next level. So there's like a bit of
Okay.
gamification to it as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and you can enter in at 5 main points. Imagine 25 levels. You can
I
enter
like that
in,
though. I like the kind of the physical assessment.
yeah,
Me too.
That's great.
yeah. And there's an entry level. So if you're someone who's already quite fit, you don't necessarily want to start at the start. You find it too
Yep.
easy. So there's kind of guides and a bit of a physical assessment, even as the entry points. You might jump in at month 20 and just have 5 months to finish off. And they're kind of like belts in karate. So we call them level 1, level 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're kind of like, it's not almost like white belt, yellow belt, brown belt, black belt. So as you go through, you're constantly learning. So instead of as you go through the months, I've pulled out like that many different unique exercises. I researched for ages, and there are so many different exercises that you can do. So instead of just next month you're doing 20 burpees instead of 10 burpees, you're actually doing new things you've never done before with your body. New things that take the mobility you've been working on the last month, you'll need, because you'll need it to be able to do a muscle up and jump over the bar or whatever you're doing. So it starts very basic, but then it gets quite hard. So that in some ways, having a program with such with those goals, we had a really high level of people staying on to the program. So once they bought in, they were like, damn, I'm progressing. I'm not kind of just doing a couple of workouts and doing the same thing every week. They're progressing, and people who can see the longevity and they want to get there. I think we've only had 3 people ever have actually finished it, because it gets bloody hard. It's almost like gymnastics, Olympic level at the end of it, So there's lots in there. You've got enough for people to really, if you started at level 1, it'd take you 2.5 years to get to, the end of it. As opposed to a lot of other stuff out there. So that was part of, we had to film so much and have it all ready to go from the get-go. Whereas I know other programs, they'll throw in some workouts and they build and add to it over time.
As they're doing it,
As they're doing it. Probably a more efficient model. We started bang and had everything.
Would have been a lot more time and capital involved doing it the way that you did it.
Yeah, and that was the thing. We put all our money and capital in the initial
at the front end.
Probably $200,000 to build the app, and these days you can white label an app and just get it for about $5,000 or $10,000 or not. It's a lot cheaper. So
when did you launch it? What year?
I think it was like
2015, I think.
15 or 16 or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. I mean, I think like technology for the health and fitness sector in the last 5 years, at least the platforms out there, it's really changed the game with how you can help people. I mean, we really made we went from teaching live education events around the world, from 2011 to about 2017, then started going online in 2018. And it's just, but we kind of waited for the technology to pick up.
Yeah.
I think now, now for today's generation, it's a lot easier to do what you did 5-6 years ago today.
Yeah, it's so easy. Like, it's just, there's so much stuff there that I would go, man, yeah, you can do things, you can have a crack, and there's so many companies that also streamline it for you now, with, I guess the way ours is quite unique in that, to have when you're doing a wireframe on an app, when you go, okay, so if a person does at the end of the month, they do an exam. If they pass exam, it opens up the keys to move forward. If they don't, what happens? We have to have we have like a makeup exam. So there's this huge wireframe. If
different workflows,
and they go there, and then they get a second chance. And then if they miss on the second chance, where like, it's huge. And we had to do that from scratch. And that was a big thing. We're super proud of it when it came out. It was so unique, but it's also, again, with such a big program, you've got to sell these things in like 10 words or less. And, so much of it just comes down to, does someone like the look of you? Bang, they're in. Not, they're out, so it's so many things. And then even like I remember we looked at, there was a bank, we were going to align with them, and they wanted to give a program to everyone there, and little things you don't think about, but with an app, they go, right, here's the security stuff we need. And it was this like huge checklist that I spoke to our developer. He goes, mate, just to even get this, for us to even go through this, let alone change things, we're going to charge you 10 grand. So we're like,
Yeah.
we got to pay even before we even start with the bank. It's going to cost us 10 grand to even get some of the security checkpoints on our app to match up with their security things, you know? So so many things you come across.
Yeah. And like a lot of people are jumping on that bandwagon now, which is, you know, creating an app, whether it's, you know, young fitness professionals trying to get onto the online space because of what's happened with COVID. What is your advice for under 25-year-olds who are sort of starting out in the health and fitness industry who want to be successful?
Yeah, I guess I'll tell you an app right now. There's one called, have you heard of True Coach?
Yeah.
I have
You
heard of it. Yeah,
Mm.
I haven't dabbled. Have you dabbled in it, Kim?
No, I haven't. I've heard of it.
Yeah, True Coach is one. So I know a guy who's doing, he's got a knee rehab program. He's put it out and he runs it through True Coach. And True Coach is like, you basically jump on, you could be a personal trainer, you could be a chiropractor and want to give specific exercises. You could do up here's your knee rehab program and send it out to all your knee rehab clients. You could do, here's your shoulder rehab program, send it all out. You can have videos that you put up on there. People go through, there's a program they click on, it'll show you the videos. And then the thing I love about it is it will enable you to record yourself doing the exercises. And then you can then have your trainer or the chiro or whatever give you feedback on those exercises. And you can have that daily. So as the person's doing their daily workouts, this guy gets you to record your last 3 reps. So you can then have, you're creating immense value where you're actually getting one-on-one feedback from this person.
Yeah.
You know, and you can do that, you know, this, if you're the trainer, you know, you can charge a lot for that. Normally what's a one-on-one session, you might get $100 for an hour,
Yeah.
but you know, you could charge $10 for the session. That person's still getting critique, not live, but it's better value for them. And really it takes you like 1 minute to watch a couple of their videos, comment, and done. You made $10. You times that. So it enables you to scale if you can't be there, especially at COVID times when you're doing stuff via, you know, it's just a really great system. I don't know. I think a True Coach doesn't cost a lot, but there's so much. I see stuff like that where you can have that interaction.
And it's all done for you. You just got to upload the content.
Yeah, you just upload the content. The whole platform's there. You pay a little membership fee or whatever and upload the content. And then if you've got your systems and you've got your programs, you do that once, and then that shoulder program could last years before you even have to release videos. You know, you just have to log on and check the people submitting their little versions, and you go, right, you know, lift your elbow up a little higher, do that, done.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. All right.
So
obviously, look. So far, you've gone across quite a few things. Tell us, like, obviously 2021 and beyond, and obviously everything that you're doing right now with the acting, like, what does 2021 look like for you? What are some of the big things that are coming up that I guess you can talk about? And yeah, hand it over to you.
Yeah, so I really want to pursue the acting. That's the big one, which then kind of comes to this point where you're really just there to audition, and it's really open. So that's the thing. You've got to be you got to believe in yourself. You've got to be optimistic, because, you know, there's not necessarily any jobs coming up that you can see. You're hoping they're there, but, you know, so there's that real unknown. But in saying that, this year's already started off all right. I've had a couple of short films that I've done, some really good. There's a big fight scene in one we did. Just filmed the Tim Tam commercial. So I'm the new Tim Tam genie. So that just came out a couple of days ago. Have my own never-ending packet of Tim Tams, which is great. Just keep it to the 10% on the 7.
That's it.
Yeah. But so really, but the big thing is now I've got to make sure I don't just sit back. I've got to be self-motivated. I've got to keep. I'm such a big builder, a believer of that, you know, the old saying, if you build it, it will come, he will come.
Yeah.
So I need to continue to be self-motivated to do the acting lessons and to keep expanding my own toolbox of things that I can bring to it. So, you know, I think if you set the goal of, if I want to be, you know, best male actor in Australia, then it ain't just going to happen. I've got to do the work to be the best male actor in Australia. So rather than just waiting for the job to come along in this industry, it's like you got to build it. You got to have all those tools. So if the job does come along, then you have the right tools for the job. The other thing you can do is, instead of just waiting for it to come along, you can go out and make it yourself. So I'm also pretty inspired to write something and shoot something. So that may be for this year as well. So we'll see. We'll just see what. There's a lot of stuff.
Well, I think when you've come from the background that you have, where you were, getting paid $9 an hour, as a PT and Newcastle boy, to do what you're doing now, mate, it's a really great success story. And I think, especially for those, personal trainers or young chiropractic students that are at university that are kind of looking 10, 15 years from now, it's an example of, I think, when you focus on one or two things and really put your heart and soul into it on a day-to-day basis, you can kind of manifest that reality which you have. So kudos to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think if you, and you can always have a side hustle, if you're doing something, you might like it, but you also might want to do something more. You want more, you want something different, there's no reason why you can't have a side hustle that you're getting into, you're trying, you're testing the waters. You might find you don't like it, but you might find you really do. So, you've just got to be super efficient with your time. That's one of the big things. I go through times where I'm super efficient. Sometimes I do procrastinate, but there's times where I'm super efficient, and that's when I think having, one of the new things I've been doing is writing a journal, and it's a journal that not just saying what's happened for the day, it's actually planning. So it's going, right, what are my key focuses for today? What do I give gratitude? What am I looking forward to? What are going to be? What do I foresee as my challenges for the day? And then at night, you then write in and you go, how did I go? Did I live up to stuff? You reinforce your daily goals, your monthly goals, and you're constantly keeping yourself accountable, celebrating, giving gratitude, and there's a bit of self-love stuff in there, all that stuff that's quite reaffirming all this positive belief and
reprogramming, I think too. It's like, I think, success or a mindset, I've found over years, for me, it's just been a case of repeating the same habits day in and day out. So whether, the gratitude journals and things like that, they're great tools. I've used them myself over the years. Completely recommend them, wholeheartedly to listeners out there as well.
Yep, definitely. That and a good vision board's always good. I did a vision board about 2 years ago, and I think in that I knocked off about 80% of the stuff I put up there. So
I love that. But look, Tim, given, your success thus far already and all the exciting things you have coming up in 2021, I actually love that you are someone that reflects and actually lives in the moment too. I find that perspective you have on life is very inspiring, and something that a lot of our listeners will take away from today's conversation. So thank you for your time today and answering all our questions. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. That's one, just saying about living the moment. It's one thing, as a new parent, I've probably more the relaxed one. Anna likes to think ahead and know what's going on. And
is it a boy or a girl?
Little girl, Elle.
Yeah.
The one thing, Anna would sometimes be a little bit like, what about this? What if we go out here? What if we get? And I'm like, look, Anna, just calm down. Look at Elle. She lives every second in the moment. She's not thinking what's going to happen in 5 minutes. What she's right now. She's like,
but how old is she now?
She's 10 weeks. So
our youngest is 7 months, and I actually said something similar to my wife recently. I'm like, children or babies in particular are such great teachers of life.
Yeah.
If you sit back and watch them, you can learn a lot.
You learn so much, and when you kind of look back, and they just are they happy right now? Bang. And most of the time, if you look, am I happy right now? I am. There's not many times where, shit goes wrong, but, it's, if you take a note out of their book and just kind of live a little bit more in the moment, you pick up so much more. Everyone's just constantly living their life in the future. And we forget to just realize how happy we are right now. And that's most people who aren't happy. They've got to do that a little bit more.
Agreed. Definitely agree. No, well, look, mate, thank you very much for today. Again, always great to have someone new on the show. And I think our listeners and Kim and I took away a lot of gems that we can apply to our career and life. So again, thank you.